two, one. Ooh, JT,
What's up?
what's going on,
My
man?
guy.
Oh my God.
One of my greatest friends.
Oh, one of my dearest men in my life. Uh, Good Lord, good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
You got long damn hair, man.
It did get long. Well, it does get longer if you let it go. It'll get longer. It will do that.
Uh, JT, I want tell people who you are, where you're from, what's going on.
My name's JT. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'm a musician. That's about it. I mean, that's all you should ever know about me, probably. Uh, I guess. Well, I'm trying out for White Blade. I'm trying to be the White Blade. I don't think it's gonna go over very well, but so that's it. That's a synopsis of me.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Little taste. First of all, Justin, JT, Justice is one of my favorite writers, artists, um, guitar players. You reach the gamut with everything you do, and very uh, just a way with words. I feel like you're one of the strongest word warriors I know. Um, and we met 2016. JT shot a Twitter at me, and I responded, and then ended up flying out and meeting up with you in your house in uh, Los Angeles in the Valley. I forget exactly where it was. It was a swanky little thing, and met your dog, met the homie Sherb, and we cooked for like a full weekend.
yeah,
Uh, and one of the fondest experiences of my life. I think, like, as a producer, it was the first time where like I got hit, and there was like follow through, and there was like excitement in working together, and like just hearing all the stuff that you were working on, and like our just like styles mesh so well. And yeah, it was a good time. It was a super
yeah.
good time.
So like, what happened was in 2012, I put out a mixtape. It was called 21 Live Forever, and I was looking for beats online incessantly, and I stumbled across Soul Lection, and this is like early Soul Lection where everybody had a Bandcamp. That's where everybody was running it off of, was Bandcamp, and all you guys had your beats on there. And so I went and swiped maybe 30 Solection beats, made a record out of it, put it out, and then when I did some research on the back end, I found out that Insightful was one of the producers, and he had probably produced 6 or 7 joints on that first EP that I ever did without him even knowing it. So fast forward like 4 years, I'm working on something that I feel is valid and interesting enough to bring people into, and so I hit him up and I was like, um, "Hey man, I've wanted to work with you for the longest," and he hit me right back. He was like, "Let's do it." I think you sent me like 2 beats or something, and I sent him back like full songs like in a day or two, and because I was just hit with that much inspiration and excitement, and I sent those songs back, and then he came out maybe a week later or something, and that was that. We started on our journey, our long music making journey together.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, those are good times. I want to like, cuz there's a lot to unpack with our relationship. I do want to kind of like laser focus onto you for a second. Like you're coming up. So you were signed to Aftermath for a decent amount of time.
Hmm.
You wrote for a lot of artists. You're coming from the Dallas area, and kind of building your own. Like kind of talk about your rap upbringing, your hip hop upbringing in Dallas.
So yeah, I think like when I was 15 was the first time I rapped. I think my buddy put on like a beat. I think it was "Lean with It, Rock with It" by the Franchise Boys. If anybody familiar with them Franchise Boys, that was the
Hell yeah.
first beat. my buddy put on, and I freestyled to it, and he had been freestyling for like a year or so, and he was trying to get me into it, and he put on the beat, and the first time I did it, I was like better than he was, right? And that was for me. I was like, whoa, wait a second, you've been doing this for some time. Um, and that just developed into a passion. And my mom bought me a microphone from Circuit City when I was a little bit older than that. And I started plugging it into a little VIO computer with no interface or anything, and it would spit the vocals out of the right speaker and spit the music out of the left speaker, and that's how my songs sounded for years. Um, and I was super passionate about it. Like that's what I wanted to do every day when I got home from school or whatever it was. I wanted to write. I wanted to write songs, rhyme, figure out how to put together words, and that turned into rapping at parties and stuff. In Texas, there's like a big freestyle culture. I'm sure it's other places too, but that turned into rapping at parties, and then I would get a lot of good feedback at those parties. Um, and then I started making songs, actual songs. Um, from there, yeah, I think about when I was 19, I did my first show in Dallas, which it was called the Summer Jump Off Festival. And there were like 13 people in attendance, maybe maximum. And I went on first. And so for me, there was like four and a half people in attendance. The half was like a dwarf or whatever. And so I think that's the right terminology. So it was four people and a dwarf, and they loved it. I mean, they clapped for me, and that spun into doing other shows. Um, so I went from the Summer Jump Off Festival to a coffee shop. Coffee shop had, maybe eight and a half people. So same dwarf came to the coffee shop too,
Biggest
but an
fan.
additional eight.
Yeah.
Um, and then eventually, man, that it just snowballed. I was doing show after show. I would meet somebody at one of these shows. They would introduce me to another person who was throwing a show, and pretty soon, I was getting to where I was comfortable on stage, and I felt like I was doing a good job. And then I met this guy named Blue. His name's Blue the Misfit. His brother is a renowned artist out here in Los Angeles named Blue the Great. Um, and he put me in this group with him, and it was called Brain Gang. And then we all went around performing for maybe 3 years, and we were lighting it up. I mean, we were doing good in the city. We got to a point where at the apex of it, we were bringing out, you know, 250, 300 people per show. We were getting paid, so these were steps that were being taken towards where it did end up. Um, so
What?
yeah, yeah, go
Where?
ahead.
Sorry. Where in the path did you start to like really hit your stride when it came to like to writing? Did you care much about the writing, or like what was the process for you, like from that 15-year-old to the 19-year-old?
Hmm. Writing was the most important. So yeah, I truly cared about the writing. Um, I don't know how to explain how the process evolved other than just daily, doing it daily. Like it's like when you work out, you don't see day two, you don't see anything, but a year and a half later, you're cut. And that's kind of how it was. It's just like daily incremental progress. Something would make me proud, and that would spark enough inspiration for me to go on and do the next thing. That was basically the whole process, even to this day.
Yeah, and I'm sure like the shows, did they kind of like it sounded like the shows kind of propelled you in a certain way that like maybe not doing the shows would have.
Yeah,
You know?
right. Like a lot of people just put their music directly on the internet and they don't ever delve into that world. That the shows gave me a ton of confidence. It gave me validation, right? So like it wasn't just an a nameless person on the internet saying your song is good. There would be real physical people coming up to you saying they appreciate what you do. I think it spreads awareness a lot faster. I think when you're willing to get out there and put yourself in front of people and be vulnerable like that, people respect that, and it almost looks like you're taking it more seriously than the next guy that's not willing to get out there and perform. and I hate performing. I get bad anxiety, stage fright. After I do the show, I get bad adrenaline uh, spikes and then dumps. It's not something that I particularly love, but I knew it was part of the gig, and I had better get good at it if it's something I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. And like cuz no one, this is all going to be audio uh for those that like can't see JT at the moment. JT's blonde hair, blue eyes, coming up in mainly like I would say a mainly black kind of culture
Well,
when
yeah, that in
coming up.
Dallas, yeah, I think the
Yeah.
hip hop scene was like it's very, very multicultural. I think I was probably one of a few white people, doing that out there, which it is what it is. It propels you in some ways because you're like an oddball, and in some ways you have to fight against, people who may not take you seriously.
Mhm. Mhm. And kind of that power of the collective is also like really interesting too. Like it's the power of the collective, but also in a live setting. Like I think that's like probably the most powerful combination of like getting cutting your teeth when it comes to
Right.
music, because like you're not solely alone. Like you have support, like you have a structure there, and there's multiple people kind of like helping the push and helping the vision. So that's a incredible experience, and like it says a lot about you too, because I do think like out of a lot of people that I know, I feel like the level of confidence that you have, self awareness, I think is on the higher end of the spectrum, um, for the most part, and I think like those experiences really help kind of build that character that you are, the man that you are now. Um,
Well, yeah, sometimes I would be performing and there'd be like 40, 50 people in the crowd just looking at me like, why are you here? What are you doing? You know? And I had to like own those moments. And sometimes I would own it like almost with a anger or like a frustration. Like I would like pick somebody in the crowd that I knew didn't like what I was doing, and I would stare at them the whole time while I'm performing the record, just to give them that energy. Like you may not believe it, but I believe it, and that's all that matters.
mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and tell me about like so Brain Gang was doing the thing. Um, kind of where did that lead?
Yeah. So yeah, we started doing shows, a ton of shows, and then like started picking up uh, quite a following, like locally. Media outlets were writing about us. The newspaper was writing about us, and eventually, I met this guy named Antonio Hall. He was a buddy of mine. He had been like hanging around the Dallas music scene. He came to a show one time and was impressed and sent a DM to this guy named DOC, who's one of Dre's like long time collaborators. He was a writer for him in the '90s. So he sent a DM with my music to DOC, and DOC responded in God's time. He said, "Hey, you got to check this kid out. He's really good." DOC said, "In God's time." And about 3 months later, we heard nothing. Antonio sent him another DM, and this is unbeknownst to me. I didn't know any of this was going on. Antonio sent him another DM, and he said this time he said, "Okay, let's get together. Like I'll listen to him. Let's see what he's got." So I'm pretty sure DOC came to a show, and I wasn't aware that he was at the show,
Hmm.
and was impressed for whatever reason. And then afterwards, him and Antonio DM back and forth a couple times, and DOC asked if I would get in the studio with him and make a demo. And so I start going to this studio in Dallas that I'd never been to. It's a really nice place. And we make a demo. I'm making songs like daily in there with DOC. And again, unbeknownst to me, he's sending those to Dr. Dre the whole time. So a week or two go by, and he finally lets me know that he was doing that. He's like, "Hey, I've been sending these back and forth to Dr. Dre, and he likes them." And I was, at that moment, I was like, "Oh my god, this is insane." So, um, I think the instruction from Dre was like, make a couple more songs or something like that. So I made a couple more songs. We sent them back and forth, And then eventually, DOC's like, hey, do you want to go out to California and meet Dre? And I'm like, yeah, of course. So, I jump on a plane and I fly out there and I meet him on the set of Straight Outta Compton, the movie. Like they were filming that movie at the time. And I met Dre on the set and I go to his trailer. I remember I was waiting outside the trailer and there was some handler girl or something that was like, oh, you can't go in yet. And I was just the anticipation, dude, and the anxiety that was building just waiting outside that door. And then finally the door opened and it's him. And he's like, come in. And I walk in and he gives me a hug. And he says, what's up, superstar? And he gives me a hug. And in that moment I just felt everything. I felt validated. I felt at peace. I felt like I was in a good place. I felt like years and years of hard work had paid off. It was just too much to explain, like what all I felt in that moment. And we hung out at his trailer for a while, talked, got to know each other, and then he was like, come to the studio tonight. And so I do. I go to the studio and he puts on a beat. As soon as I get there, he's sitting in the room by himself and he just puts on a random beat and he's like, what do you got? And that's what he asked me. He's like, what you got? And I had to make a song right there on the spot in front of Dre, just me and him in the room, and he liked it. And then kind of that was the beginning of the end right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Gosh, dang. Ooh, yeah. So all of that, all of those like hours putting into crafting, like what did you feel like was your strongest suit at the time?
Self-belief. Simple as that. Nothing to do with music. Like I quickly realized where I was at on the music totem pole. Like once I got around him, started hanging out up there, even getting around people like you, like I quickly realized like, oh, you know, I have a lot to learn here. And I'm the type that I don't like to be behind. I don't like to fall behind the eight ball. So once I saw the level, I had to rise to it or try my best.
Yeah.
But self belief, yeah. If I had any advice for anybody out there that may be listening to this, it's like believe in yourself. Um, and never let anyone deter you from that belief, no matter what. And that's all you need. Simple as that.
And that's so much harder. Easier said than done,
Yeah.
for sure.
Big
but
time.
but is the absolute truth. Like the amount of belief. There's a time we were kicking it. I think it was around the time of Connor. Shit, when was that? Conor McGregor versus someone. It was a big deal. Was it
Floyd
Floyd?
Mayweather.
Yeah, yeah. And like
Dude, I was so into that.
the level of self belief you have, bro. You were saying like I would beat Conor McGregor's ass. Like, and you said that like you meant it. And I was like, damn, I need like half the amount of belief this man
One time
has.
I almost got in a fight with my friend Thomas because I told him I can land a punch on Floyd Mayweather. One punch in a fight. I said, dude, I can land a one punch. Just one. And he's like, no, you can't. You for sure cannot. You could never land one punch. And I was mad. I was legit mad at him because I was like, dude, you don't know me, man. You don't know what I'm made out of. And that's what's funny is like that's kind of the attitude that I had this whole time. Like, yeah, and could I land a punch on Floyd Mayweather? Probably not. But what good does it do you to go in there defeated?
Yeah, yeah,
What good does that ever do you? So, you know.
yeah. That's yeah, man. That's one of the special things about you, man. That I feel like I carry with me that I highly respect from you, and I know it's not like, you know, like it's inspiring to kind of be around. I remember when we connected and just to kind of understand like how you worked, and like that's the beauty of the collaboration is you kind of just like learn certain things from certain people, and it builds up and it builds your character. And I think that humbleness of like being around people that have are kind of far ahead in certain aspects, like, is super important throughout your life, and important to kind of have around you, um, in certain places in your life. Like I noticed, like even now being kind of a little secluded away from LA, it I do miss the aspect of being around artists. Um, but I have at the same time kind of gained the strength of being able to work efficiently remotely, you know? So there's like kind of gives and takes that come with it. But back to your story. Uh you you were uh-oh. Uh you were you got in, you started getting in with Dre. You were right, was that around the time of Compton, of the first, like, kind of the debut record of Dre?
Yeah, so it was around, yeah, like I met him on the set of that movie, the Straight Outta Compton movie,
Right.
and then we started working immediately.
Yeah.
Um on just random songs. And then about a month or two of that goes by and Dre comes to me and says, "Hey, I want to turn these into something. Like I want to turn this into a record." And so like I think we had made, 4 or 5 songs up to that point. I don't think any of those ended up making it on the final album. But I think it just sparked that thing in him, where I can't take credit for this because I don't know. I haven't ever talked to him about this, but I have a buddy named Mez who's a rapper and creative guy, like extremely talented, and he was in the same situation as me. Like he came up there, started writing a few songs, and Mez and I hit it off and became really fast friends. And we're similar, like in our attitude and our approach. And I think that the combination of both of our energy really sparked something in Dre. And I may be wrong about that because I haven't talked to him, but I think the combination of how bad Mez and I wanted it, like the energy we were bringing into the studio every day, the excitement, I think that really did something for Dre, and ended up, you know, putting out an album that he hadn't put out a record in years, like a decade or more. So
Yeah.
um,
What was that experience like? I know it's probably like a long, like, there's many stories, but like in kind of a synopsis, like, what was that experience like for you with the writing and the hours and
yeah, dude, it was wild. Like, well, with the hours, just specifically, like I would say like before I got to Dre, I was probably doing music like anywhere from like 4 to 6 hours a day, and then I miss days here and there. And I got there, and like even that first day that he pulled up that beat and told me let's make a song, I think we were in there for like 10 hours. Just the first day. Once we started working on the album, we were having 14-hour sessions where you'd have to take a nap. You'd have to take a nap in the middle of it for like 30, 45 minutes and then jump back in there because it was that intense. And it just showed me like the levels of work ethic, that the different levels of work ethic that people have, and like what people are willing to do. So, obviously it hit me like if Dre is willing to put in 12, 14 hours at the play, like at the time that he's already accomplished all this, then why am I putting in 4 hours? So that was a big revelation for me at the time. This is like 2014, and ever since then, I've probably doubled my output just because I've seen the links that you can go to. So that was one big thing, was just adjusting to like the level of work. But overall, man, the experience was just beautiful. I mean, I learned so much about music. Um, he opened up so many doors for me that were shut before, and I don't just mean like relationships. I mean like internally, doors inside of me that were shut, and I didn't know where the key was. Like he opened my voice up. He challenged me in so many ways. It was really, really challenging, and it was difficult a lot of times. Like I have a story. He was one night we were writing a song, and there was like a Spanish part, or he wanted me to rap in Spanish, and I couldn't do it. Like for one, I can't roll my R's at all, and so I was trying to do it and really pull it off and make it authentic, and it just wasn't clicking. It just wasn't there. I sounded goofy, is the bottom line, and I remember he looked at me, he was frustrated. I had tried the vocal like 20, 30 times in a row. And he was frustrated with me and he looks at me and he slams his hand on the table. He's like, JT, we're actors. He's like, this is what we do. And that like kind of shook me. I was like, wait a minute, like, why don't I get into this character? Like, why am I just dancing around it? Like why don't I dive in this pool? And I didn't get it. And I tried it maybe 20 more times in front of him. I didn't get it right. And he left. He walked out of the room frustrated. Didn't say a word, just walked out frustrated. And me and Q, which is the one of the main engineers up at Aftermath, we spent the rest of the night doing that Spanish part. Like maybe an additional 4 to 6 hours on this one 4 bar or 8 bar Spanish part, and I got it. I finally got it at the end of the night, and he came back in the next day, and I said, hey, I got something I want to show you, and I played him the Spanish part, and it sounded really good, and he was like, all right, man. He's like, okay. Like, just an affirmation of like, okay, you want it. I see it. I see it in you.
Mm-hmm.
Those were like epic moments for me, just like proving why I was there, like proving to him why it was a good decision to have me there.
Do you feel like there was were you able to work on your own kind of projects there? Like what was the kind of situation? Like you were signed
Right.
at the time. Um like what was kind of the situation for you?
So yeah, at first, like when we were doing Compton, I wasn't signed. I was just a songwriter for him. And then maybe about a year after Compton released, we went ahead and got into a situation where he signed me as an artist. And then, focus shifted completely to just making records, like all the time, trying to make the best songs that I could. That's about the time that we linked up. So like, right after the Compton, my focus shifted. Okay, let me find a team. Let me find producers that I respect. Let me try to build a record that I'm proud of. And that was that. I would get calls for Dre for writing gigs here and there. Like he would call me up. I'm working on this. Can you help me with this? And uh, outside of that, it was just me on my own time at the house, working hard. I don't know if there may be a misconception out there, like Dre is sitting in with us and working song by song, but that's not how it was working. It was just like me on my own time, trying my best to come up with the best material I could,
Mm-hmm.
and you as well. Like around that time, that's when we linked, and you were in the same boat with me. I mean, we were just in there all the time trying to make something cool that we were proud
Yeah.
of. And I was
Yeah.
turning in songs left and right. So every time I get a batch of songs, I would show Dre the songs.
Yeah, man. That was a beautiful time. I feel like that was one of the a milestone for me. Like was linking with you, and it was the first time, before meeting you, I'd never really like fully worked with an artist, and like you kind of were the first artist I got to like focus on, and we vibed, and we kind of trusted each other's judgment when it came to like what our strengths were, and I think
Right.
we just clicked really well, and shout out to Sherb too, because Sherb was the third part of the unit, who was engineering everything, so he knew how to cut your vocals, he knew how to track you
Right.
and mix and master, and so like we kind of had like a really dope trifecta. um and it was cool because I do remember, like, short story, like first meeting you was actually going straight to the studio, I believe, to record one. And then I met Dre that same night, and to be honest, I didn't really even know much about Dre other than a few songs, like big songs. So I didn't feel super like nervous or anything. Like
Yeah.
it felt like very natural, and he was just like one of the warmest dudes I've ever met, and had a crazy energy when he was in the room. But meeting you and seeing you, how people reacted to you in the room, and like it was my first taste of like, oh wow, this is like the real this is the real shit. This is what how people work on music, and like how it
Yeah.
should feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like only reason, man, people were warm to me up there is because like I genuinely liked people. You know, that was it. It wasn't like I was this outstanding artist. I made good relationships with the people that I liked up there, and we appreciated each other, and that was it. And we're all kind of in this crazy scenario, right? Like Dre is Dre, and God knows what's going on in his head all the time. But all of us, we're kind of like in the boat together as like the students. Even the older producers up there are students in some ways. So we all bonded and related over that, because it's a shared experience. Um, like Mez and I are the same age, got to Dre at about the same time, had almost the exact same experience. For him and I, it's kind of like a college, like fraternity, like that's what it feels like. Like we went to school together, and so it's that kind of bond. I have that kind of bond with a lot of the guys up there to this day. Those are some of my greatest friends.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think like I think it's really interesting too. I recall him, Dre was like, "You're gonna learn guitar," and
Yeah.
like challenge you in that way. And I feel like it's almost like a personal trainer, but like for music a little bit. Like they kind of
Right.
push you beyond your comfort zone. They kind of make you uncomfortable a little bit in terms of
Right.
getting you acclimated to trying new things. And I feel like that's something that's easy to avoid. So when it's like there,
So
and
easy.
it's like and it's serious, and it's like it's serious, and it's good for you, and you have to do it. It takes everything to a different level.
It does. Dude, that's the perfect analogy of a personal trainer. Because you'll sit there and make the same beat you made
Hmm.
yesterday, and then tomorrow you'll make the same beat you made today. And like, when you have somebody like that in the room, they're going to challenge you. They're going to be like, I don't think that hi hat is really smacking. I don't think that snare is hitting how it should. I don't think this and this. Like, so many times I thought I nailed it and I didn't. So many times I cut the vocal, I'm like, yes, that's that. And Dre's like, again, and it's just pushing to see what's in there. That's another thing, like learning from Dre, trying to take Dre's perspective is like when you work with other artists or musicians, is like push those people, see what's in there, because you don't know what you have to play with until you push it out of them, because they're not just going to give it to you. Most people have inhibitions, right? Like I can't just go in a room full of people and just bust out singing max volume. I have inhibitions, but if you push those people enough, they'll do it, right? So like that's not my character. I'm not like life of the party, like everybody in the room look at me. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just am shy in that way. But Dre would push me in the way that, there'd be 15 people in the room and I'm sitting there screaming on the mic or giving like this really emotional, vulnerable performance with a dozen people in the room. So these are things I never would have imagined I could do, you know? Like falsetto too. I didn't ever experiment with my falsetto vocal at all. I wouldn't even have considered it. And Dre one time told me, he's like, try this, try this falsetto. And how he got me to do it was he did it. He did it on the mic right in front of me and was like, try it like this. And he sounded bad when he did it, but he didn't care. He didn't care. There's a ton of people in the room. He sounds bad. He doesn't care. And he imparted that on me, like, just do it. Let it go. Just do it. And what's funny is like, have you ever noticed anytime you're recording or you're drawing, you're doing something creative or even athletic, like if you half-ass it, like you end up looking goofier than if you just gave your all. And that's what you're afraid of, is looking silly or failure or whatever. But if you half-ass it, you look like a failure. I mean, you look like you're failing. If you go full force, put everything you have into it, you may fail, or you're gonna achieve what you want gloriously, right? And glory. So just go for it. Is
Yeah.
just
That
at all times.
that's so funny you brought that up. I was literally probably 2 hours before this. I was trying to record, and I knew I was half-assing it for like pretty much an hour and a half, but I just kept trying. But I
Yeah.
knew I kept trying, knowing that I wasn't fully invested. And then I had to stop myself because it was like, what am I doing right now? You know? And I feel like when there's a value in things that come naturally, that just like, that you channel and whatever, and it comes out naturally. But then there's also value in like kind of that kind of hunger to get it out. But it's hard to know when is like the right time for anything. And I feel like in those moments, like especially in the studio with people around, it's like that's a hard thing to fathom, like people that are all in there very serious about what they do, and
Oh,
you're being
masters of their craft too. Like
right, right.
I'm the worst one there. I always had that view from day one that I got there. I was like, I'm the worst musician up here. Like I might not be the worst songwriter, but I am the worst musician up here by far. So like there was that pressure too, right? You feel
Yeah,
like you're struggling in front of people that could do it easily, you know? Phenomenal singers up there. Like a lot of times it surprised me, like, why am I here? Why am I here?
imposter syndrome a little bit, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have that. It's like you can't escape it. Um,
I
but
felt that just like from proximity, bro. Like I had just being in there, like knowing you, and then being in there, I felt like, damn, feel like I should not be here right now. I don't know
yeah,
why I'm here.
I think that's just the natural thing. Like when you're in those kind of situations, you just feel like, but then you realize like everybody feels that way.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
or at least they did right when they got there,
Hmm.
and it kind of puts you at ease. Like, we're all just random people going for what we're dreaming about here. That's
Yeah,
that's the bottom line.
yeah. Someone said something is like, just like we all poop, you know.
That's how I get over talking to women. If I feel like a girl's unapproachably hot, like way too beautiful, I'll just remind myself that they have to take a shit
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And then I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, it's not so bad. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not so bad. The damn, I remember we so shoot, when was it? 2017. So we met 2016, 2017. I end up leaving my job in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I get out of a very long relationship. My whole life has shifted, and I come down, and you're like, you could stay with me, and I was like, word, and you're like, word, and then I come down, and damn, met with open arms. I don't know if I had a trailer. I did have a trailer, and I unloaded the trailer into a storage, and I stayed on your couch, nice ass Restoration Hardware couch, um, in your apartment in Valley Village, and and then we just literally just made music for like 6 7 months straight,
Yeah.
like all
All
day,
day.
all day. Yeah,
Yep.
it
We
was
would go
amazing.
work out in the morning, and then we would come back to the apartment and just make music incessantly, just all
Oh,
the time,
it was the
which is the
best.
life, right? That's the life. Like, and none of it has seen the light of day up to this point, although it will.
It will.
It will definitely see the light of day. But yeah,
His
those are some great times, man. That's like, what more could you want out of life? You know?
Nah. That was honestly like one of the best times of my life. Like we we literally just put everything into it. Like put everything into
Yeah.
it, and damn. Yeah, we stay
And
up. We
the
yeah,
growth during that time was like phenomenal. And
yeah.
now when I listen to what you're doing, it's like it's out of there, dude. Like Unfoolable, all of that stuff is just ridiculous.
Thank you,
What's
man.
the record I love from your last one with your buddy Hollow, bro?
Hollow.
What a
Yeah.
beautiful song. I mean,
Man,
incredible music,
you guys
incredible work.
you guys have penmanship like no other. Both of you guys. You guys got to link up actually, but
Let's do it, cause
another
yeah, I'm a fan
yeah.
of that guy.
Yeah, he's amazing. Amazing. But the thing too, like it was cool cuz we moved down there. I think we got started finding a rhythm, and then by kind of like mid I would say like a couple months in, we had like a rhythm down. Like we had like a schedule. Like I would leave the house, leave the apartment, go out and do my thing, come back. We just like be ready to go. Sherb would be ready to go recording. You'd be up and ready, and like it was it was a solid, like we made like I want to say like over 100 records,
I would say that.
maybe. Yeah.
I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely over 100 records over the course of my time knowing you, but like probably within that time, a lot of music, and we did. I mean, what was cool too is we did a lot more than just music too. Like we got into boxing pretty heavily.
Yeah.
We would make music and then spar at like 3, 4 in the morning, like kind of
In the
not
living room.
in the living room, not full on hard like sparring, but enough to where I was like, "Ooh, okay, that was a good shot, you
Yeah, it was a
know,
little shot.
that was a little
My
shot.
boy Insightful has a mean overhand right. The right
Oh,
hook is just mean.
that was
It
my
just it
yeah.
comes out of nowhere.
No,
And it,
but I will say though, you are quick. You are quick, and not. I don't know if a lot of people know you play baseball
yeah.
too. So you got some natural athleticism in you. So I had some poundage on you, but you had some very quick. Like I was not expecting how quick of a reaction you got. Your jabs like literally always got me.
Dude,
It
let's
was a good time.
fucking let's fight on pay-per-view for millions.
I'm down.
Let's fight
Fuck
me
you,
and you
JT.
versus Logan Paul.
Yeah, both of us. Yeah,
Yeah.
he wreck us.
Yeah, he probably whoop our ass.
He
Yeah.
would whoop our ass. He's way
Yep.
too big. But I would do it. Yeah, and you have quite the growth yourself. Like I think when we first connected, it was very rap centric.
Mm.
Towards the latter half of our marriage, it was a lot more folk. Like
Yeah.
tell like let how was that shift in your taste and in your kind of direction creatively?
Um well, I could say like the catalyst for it was I just didn't know what to rap about anymore. Like rap would always come from a place of like confidence or like ego. And like as I'm getting older, I find myself less attached to that. So it's hard for me to like rap about something that's not ego driven. I feel like, singing comes from the soul. It's just something that comes from it literally comes from your stomach, it comes from your soul. Rapping comes from the mind, in my opinion. Like, I think you can rap soulfully, kind of, but in my opinion, rapping comes from the mind and analytical, and singing comes from the soul. So as I've gotten deeper into this music journey, like I've just leaned more and more towards things that feed my soul, and things that make me feel whole in that way. And rapping, it does sometimes. Like when I have something I want to talk about, and the only way to get it out is rapping, because maybe it's too wordy, or it's a story that can't be told within the time that a line of singing goes by. But yeah, I'd say that's what it was. It's just, but always, man, I've had like eclectic music taste. I was never fully invested in rap. I mean, I've had like a number of different influences growing up, like classic rock, psychedelic rock, blues. jazz. My dad would listen to. My mom would be listening to pop music and R&B records. So like I always knew I didn't want it to only be rap. It was only rap because that's all I knew how to do. You know, I had no singing ability. I did not learn instruments growing up. So like all I could play with was my vocal, and I couldn't make a pretty singing sound. So all I had was raps. And so that's I made the best of what I had, the tools that I had.
Yeah, and it's interesting like that. The I could see people arguing like, oh well, like rap is soulful. I would agree with you though. I think there's a fine line in it, and it's I think of the voice and like singing as more of like an instrument than actual like vessel for
Rapping is more of like percussive, right? It's like a
sure,
percussive instrument,
for
and
sure,
singing is like an instrument you can bend, right? And you can like um,
totally.
get a lot of different emotion out of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure like a good comparison. It feels more like a string, like anything that's not percussive, essentially.
Yeah,
Like,
like super emotive, right? Like something
mm-hmm.
you can bend, something you can like
Yeah,
get a lot of variety of sound out of.
yeah,
Whereas a rap is just da 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 da. Like Jay-Z sounds the same rapping in his last song as he does his next song.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
Chris Stapleton might use a different inflection, or like Brandy might use a different inflection, on this bar than she does on this bar. It's
Mm-hmm.
just I know you can do that in rapping too, but I think people get what I'm
Yeah,
saying more or
yeah.
less.
I would agree. I would agree with that for sure. The we both have like a strong, heavy man crush on Bon Iver.
Yeah, yeah, I
Or
love him.
fuck, what's his name? Justin Vernon.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. I feel like when we were kind of making a lot of stuff, he was a point of reference a lot of the time for
for
your
sure.
inspiration.
Yeah, because he does something that I've always wanted to do, which is like seamlessly combine the genres. I mean, he does it like better than I've ever heard, right? Like you know, name a genre and it's in there, like down to bluegrass, like down to like banjo, like and then he'll use like trap drums sometimes, and he'll use like strange elements and bring them all in together. And his music's gorgeous, right? It's like all these strange elements that are strange from each other brought in. Um, it's like a dinner meeting with complete strangers, right? But for some reason, like the conversation's flowing and it's beautiful.
Damn, that's a hard. Yeah, I like that. I'm logging that into my memory bank right there. I like that. I like that comparison. That's so true, and it's very raw. It's very like that falsetto he has. There's something about falsetto for me that's
Yeah.
like that's probably one of the most powerful kind of ranges of a voice. Like there, it could be a man or a woman. It could be anything. Like that range, that like frequency, just really does it for me. Like
You
the
know what it
weekend.
is too?
Yeah,
Is like you can't half-ass falsetto, right? Like you have to push it out.
yeah.
You have to dig to get that falsetto out and to have it be powerful and consistent. So there almost is no faking the funk with that thing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to let it go. And then maybe that's why it's visceral, like it cuts like that.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it is like the soul. The soul is like excreting from the body.
Yeah, it's being like vacuumed out of
Yeah.
like open your mouth, it's being like vacuumed out of there. Like
Yeah.
no, it
Yeah.
is gorgeous, dude. It's one of the most gorgeous things you can do in music, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Oh man, the best. And he's so good at it. Like I think the one song, the song that put me onto him it was a video. It was them Bon Iver in like a hallway or something in like Ireland, and it was like, "Come on, skinny love, just let it sink
Sheesh.
in." Yeah. Have you seen that video? And it's
I
like
don't think
there's
so.
reverb and shit, and there's people watching. Like the camera turns around, there's a whole group of people watching. But like, I would literally be on the ground crying if I came across that, like some live performance of Skinny Love. Oh my God, kill
Dude.
me, kill me.
Yeah, no,
You
he's amazing. Like, hopefully we'll get to work with him someday.
Oh
That'd be
yeah,
great.
no. Oh, I hope so. If he doesn't, God forbid if like, God is funny when it comes to like these really, really, you know, ahead of their time types of people.
Right, right.
So I'm not even gonna say nothing there, but I hope we do. I think that would be a fascinating experience.
I think sometimes, on speaking of that point, like, people are chopped down early because the progression that they would create is too much. So it's like God is like, whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute.
Whoa, whoa,
We
bye
can't.
bye.
Yeah, yeah, we can't let y'all all jump up to this level. Like, things will move too quickly.
Yeah.
There's like a natural pace to everything, and some people break that code, and it's like you gotta get rid of them somehow.
Right, right. No, that's the thing about airplanes is like and helicopters is like you're getting a little closer to the proximity of God if you think God is up high. So
Huh.
a lot of times, you get up in those things, just remember you're
Dude, I'm
walking a
never
fine
getting
line.
in a helicopter.
Oh hell
Ever.
no. I
Too
hate
many have gone down in a helicopter, man. What's the deal? How are those things even approved at this point? Like, I
That's
don't
true.
understand.
That's true. A lot of in, incredible people have died on
Too many moving parts in that thing, man.
no, no,
You
and
know?
moving in different directions too. Like,
Right.
yeah, there's a lot of yeah physics going on with those
Yeah.
machines.
One dork who watched a Game of Thrones marathon too late the night before sends the whole thing down.
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, oh, what
Oh,
do you
what I'll
think?
say, let me
Yeah,
say this too.
yeah.
We were talking earlier about like a progression from rapping to singing and stuff.
Uh,
I didn't get to say, like, you were a big reason that I transitioned. Like, it is just being around you, hearing different approaches you would take, like the way that you would come at songs, and like the way that you would bend your vocal or certain things like that inspired me. And I was like, oh shit, what if I tried that? Or what if I could try something like that? Or a lot of times you and I would write songs together where you would perform the piece and then I would go and perform it after you. Or we would maybe co-write it or something like that. But matching your vocal or trying to match your vocal taught me a lot, right? And brought me a long way.
oh
So
shit.
yeah, just you alone, like, helped the singing come a long way.
Oh,
Because
thanks, man.
Insightful, if people don't know, is like a phenomenal singer. Like, he won't give. I don't think he'll give himself as much credit as I will. But like, he's got one of my favorite male vocals. Period.
Oh shit,
It's,
man.
yeah, it's phenomenal stuff. Like, really, really phenomenal stuff. So even being in proximity to him was like um, huge for me.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
That was an interesting time because like I think I think we definitely fed it off each other in a lot of different ways. And I think at the time I was just more so using the voice as uh like a lead instrument, you know? And I think kind of I was definitely feeding off how you approached records too. So like when we started living together, I think I could like I think we kind of like whatever the word is, like there's a good synergy with like
Yeah.
how like I kind of knew how you would write to
Approach
something.
something.
Yeah, exactly. So and that was a time I didn't really even take singing all that seriously. It was just more so to get I really loved hooks and stuff like that. But when it came to like verses, I think that was a challenging part. But like it definitely, whenever there was moments where that top line, that kind of lead melody would turn into words, that shit was insane to me. You've done that with many records, and like it's dope because that's I feel like my weakness is the writing aspect of songwriting. Um, so
So yeah, we
yeah,
balance each other out really well.
yeah,
And
hell
like,
yeah,
I think that's what you're supposed to do, right? Like, when you're around a creative, is like soak it in. Is like, you guys melt into each other and like pick up all the pieces of each other that you need, right? To to make you individually stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we did that, right? Like I think I definitely soaked a lot of game from you and like learned a lot. I mean, again, if nobody knows this about Insightful, like he's also one of the most interesting producers there is, period. Like the way that he makes music is different than anything you've heard. Where he puts his drums at, where he puts all his percussion at is different than what you've heard. And like all of this was challenging for me at the time too, and like picking it up and even approaching some of your records is tough because they're so interesting and they're so unique to you. It's like a lot of times I'd be stuck, like, damn, I don't even know how to approach this. And then you would show me. It's like you had a secret code. Like you would come over with a top line that was just like gorgeous. I'm like, how did you hear that top line in this music? Because you got all these clashing chords and stuff. I'm like, how are you hearing this beautiful top line? But he just does, simple as that.
Shit, man, I'm sweating right now. I appreciate that, man, and I think that's I think it says a lot because we both have an affinity to Bon Iver, so I think that makes a lot of sense. Like I think we both kind of have this like attraction to the madness that he creates,
Yeah,
but
and just
perfection.
people who are pushing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
pushing the boundary. I don't care if it's Bon Iver, fucking
Right, right.
that Dijon kid that we listened to for a while, or like whoever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that's pushing is what I'm interested in.
Right.
I had a conversation with my dad the other day. He's been sending me music since I was a kid. Putting me on different music. He gave me his whole record collection.
Mm.
Like that's kind of where my initial love for music started. Was just riding around with my dad in the truck, like him putting me on numerous different artists. And like he was talking to me the other day, he was trying to send me a song, and I was just not really in the mood for it because music is all day, every day for us, right? So it's like you hear a lot of like fighters or basketball players be like, I don't watch basketball. I don't watch fights. That's what I do all day, every day. So in some ways, like the passion for music, it hurts your ability to be a fan, right? Like you can't just listen and enjoy it. You have to pick it apart and like understand how to implement it in your own thing or learn from it. Um, I forget what we were talking about, how I even got onto this, but that's just it's an interesting thing. Is like once you become fully immersed in music, you almost can't do it for fun anymore because I
Mm.
can't just be leisurely about it.
Do you?
Um,
I
Oh yeah,
find
oh
that
yeah.
yeah,
So I,
yeah.
I was looking for artists. I'm always looking for artists that push that boundary so I can soak something,
Mm-hmm.
so I can learn something. So that's why those guys are like my favorite artists, because they challenge me and they challenge music in general.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I find it was like easier to find those artists earlier on, and like the more you go, the more time you kind of soak in music, and you're like a little more what I wouldn't even say well rounded because there's a lot of fucking music. It's like how much you can intake, but like it was a lot easier to find inspiration earlier on, and like finding those artists that trigger something in you that speak to you in a whole different way than the rest of the group. You
right.
know.
Yeah.
Um, do you notice? I was gonna ask too because you kind of touched on it a little bit, but like, do you find it harder? I talked with this about with someone else in another kind of episode, but I'm always curious what people's takes on are from the beginning of music and kind of not giving a fuck about the business side or the money or whatever, and just that coming from that place of passion versus like now where there's bills, there's adulthood and a roof that you have to provide for, and kind of like where that amount of experimentation comes from. It's I feel like it's a little harder as you progress to keep that spirit of like exploration and failure in the forefront, or at least like not think about it as much when you create stuff.
Right. Yeah. Like, well, take somebody like major artists like Drake or something. You know, like a Drake couldn't. I guess he could, but he couldn't come and put out a stripped down acoustic record, all acoustic guitar. His fans would probably refute it, right? They would be like, "This isn't what we want."
He might be a bad example 'cause I feel like he could do anything.
Maybe so. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe he's the
like maybe
monster.
like Kendrick or something. If Kendrick did like a
Right, but you kind of shoehorn yourself into this
right.
place, and then like you have to produce that. You have to produce that exact type of content or that exact level of content in order to keep the lights on, right? And like for me, man, it's just like working anyway, you know, regardless of what happens. I personally, I haven't shifted my approach relative to like my income. I haven't shifted the approach at all, but that's just personally, you know. But I haven't been in a position where necessarily like people are expecting a certain thing from me. You know, I haven't been in that spot. So I've been able to be malleable and play around because I've been in the shadows the whole time. So like nobody knows what anything I do sounds like. So I get to sit here and experiment and play around all the time. The reality of bills is what it is. Yeah, if you want to be liberated and you want to be free from having to like make a certain style of music or anything, your options are like get a job, right, and have a side job that sustains you. That way you can be fully creative in that side of your in that aspect of your life, or you know that's basically the option. The option
Hmm.
is have a side job that allows you to be liberated in your creative space because yeah, anytime you start to compromise, it starts feeling like a job anyway. You know, like if you get hired to produce music for a commercial or hired to write a certain song for a certain artist, there's gonna be guidelines there, and there's gonna be bumpers, you know, that you're bumping into the whole time. So
What was
that
it
can be
like
challenging.
as a writer, like kind of back in the Dre days, like writing for other artists? Like, did you do? Was that easier for you, or was that like was it challenging, or was it a mix, or?
I think at first it was hard, yeah, like because I had never written for anyone other than myself. So like it was always my perspective on things. And yeah, I mean there's definitely a learning curve, but s- doing maybe 10 sessions with Dre or so, I was over that curve. It was just about understanding the person who you're writing for, right? Like the more you spend time with them and the more you understand their perspective, the closer you're going to get to delivering the right thing the first time. So, like as I would get to know him and his perspective, like I would know what not to say. I would know what to say. I would know
Mhm.
what would make him excited to hear, and or what would be like, yeah, that's whatever. So I was able to just get more efficient, you know, in the way that um, I was doing it. And then I think that's with any artist, like the Foster the People stuff, or like the Game, or LL Cool J. It's just about getting around that person. Kind of the more they'll open up to you, the better it is, right? Like I would have times where we would hang out in the lobby, Dre and I, and Mez or whoever, and we would just sit there and talk for like an hour before the session. Just talk about anything, talk about life, women, like how his love life was going, how what he was excited about, and we would take those things and implement them in the record, you know. And maybe Dre would say something to me in passing, like in the kitchen, and then I would put it in the record. You know, I like slip it in there where he didn't even really realize that I had been taking notes while he was talking to me. And then obviously he would love those because they're it's basically his words. Yeah. Um, so yeah, man, it's definitely a challenge to write for other people, but it's nothing that anyone listening to this can't accomplish.
That sounds stressful as fuck to write something for someone with so many different things that you can possibly say, so many combinations of words, and to present that to someone who essentially like is a legendary figure in music.
He's like a living legend.
Yeah, like how do you know what to say? Like that yeah.
I didn't ever know what to say, really. That's the truth. Is like I just over time just learned him better and like learned what would be interesting to him, for him to hear. Uh, and then started just writing that stuff, writing the stuff that I knew he would like to hear.
And like in you would like would you hang out before the sessions and then kind of get to know him in a certain way and like
Yeah, for sure. Like we would ask him like, "What's going on this week? Like, what's on your mind? Uh, what do you want? What are you gonna buy next? Like, just whatever would spark some kind of insight into like his life or his way of thinking." And yeah, over time, eventually, we just got closer and closer, and I kind of could predetermine those things.
nice. The let's fast forward up to like now, like these days, present days. Cuz I really want to like we made quite a few records. I'm really curious to who JT is now. Who's Justice now like at the present moment. Because you've done records with Dre and with Kendrick and Pac and kind of like and you've written music for the list of names is insane. Who 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 did that? Who did that person become? Like
Mm.
who are you now?
Uh, I'm somebody just still trying to figure it out. Like, I guess that's the best explanation I have is like still just testing myself, trying to challenge myself all the time, come up with different ideas, different ways to approach things. Like I'm just ever evolving, revolving door, man. Like I just always learning, always striving. Um, who am I now? Yeah. Um, hard to say. To be honest, that's
I
hard to
know
say.
it's kind of a, like a generic ass
It's a
question, but
philosophical question, man.
yeah, that's a deeper rooted question, lad. Uh, do you like Patty the Batty?
Yeah, I love Patty the Batty. He's
Dude, Patty.
hilarious.
Oh, he's the fucking best. If you don't know who Patty the Batty is, it's like Walmart version of Conor McGregor.
With a
He's
chili
like
bowl.
with a chili bowl haircut.
Dude, the best part is the chili bowl. Cause like imagine getting your ass whooped by somebody with a chili bowl. Just
Nah.
imagine that. A blonde chili bowl. Ass whooping.
Yeah, that'd be
Special
demoralizing.
delivery.
Special delivery. Patty the Batty. I mean I watch his like vlogs if you haven't seen have you seen those on YouTube?
Yeah.
Um he's a thick boy. He's got some meat on him.
That's a thick kid, I tell you. A thick kid there, boy.
he's he's got some yeah, he's scary. He'd be
Hmm.
scary in person like and there's like a craziness. I mean I feel like kind of in your situation coming from the sports side, there's like a level of competitive
Yeah.
spirit that I feel like is is im- I feel like important to have in music to some extent.
Well, it has no place in art, right? But it has a place in business.
Mhm.
And this is the music business, yeah? So
Mhm.
like that's why you find somebody like let's say like a Drake. Drake is probably uber competitive. I don't know him. I've never met him, but I could imagine that he's a competitive guy. And does he make? Is he the greatest musician? Is he the greatest singer? Probably not. But is he? Does he have that competitive fire? Probably so. And I think the combination of just the competitive fire, the self belief, even matched with like pretty good music. It doesn't have to be phenomenal. Just match that with pretty good music, and you're dealing with like a monstrous entity. So yeah, I think it can help you for sure. It has no place in the room while you're creating, but after you create and it's time to sell something or it's time to position something, yeah, I think that could help you.
That's a good comparison. Cuz I do think a lot of the times I don't I feel like I should be more competitive, but it's just not in my nature, but I do feel like having uh some folks that I meet that are very successful kind of have that tinge to their character
Yeah,
that is
because
kind
they
of
have
it is.
to. They have
Mhm.
to like they have to prove who they are. It's like the validation of themselves, right? It's like if they think of themselves that way, then they must succeed in order to validate themselves. So like they leave themselves with no option. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
must succeed.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that it can be a valuable tool, to put in your arsenal for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I really fuck with Patty the Batty. Like all those UFC guys, I feel like a lot of them like when we were really like living together, that was kind of when I was first put onto UFC, and I wasn't exposed ever, or nor did I really even care at the time. But then once you see like what these people go through, the
Hmm.
conditioning and like the although it's like 15 minutes or whatever, it's like probably when you're in that situation, probably like an hour and a half or so at
Yeah.
least.
And like
Um,
just the fight that you have to have. And you remember when we were training with Paul?
mhm.
Insightful and I had a personal trainer. His name was Paul. He's a funny guy, great guy. But at that gym, there was a guy that used to fight in Bellator. His name was George. And George told me one day that if I wanted to take a fight, I would have to run on the treadmill for 10 times the length of the fight in a row. To have my conditioning at that point. So I would, if the fight's 15 minutes, I have to run 150 minutes straight on the treadmill, which is 2.5 hours. And that's
Did
the
you say
level.
at like what speed? Like is it
No, he
like
didn't tell me that.
3.3 or like
But a healthy jog, yeah, no,
yeah.
it's not a walk, but just that level, that's what inspires me about fighting and watching fighting is just like y- the dedication you have to give to it is really inspiring to me. I see a lot of parallels in my journey and like a fighter's journey. The difference is, I'm not getting in there willing to die and get my face broken. Um, I just have to maybe suck up some fear and go on stage or something. But there are a lot of parallels and fighting does inspire me in that way because it's like the most raw sport there is. There's no ball, there's no anything. It's just you get in there against this other guy and who wants it, you know, who wants it the most, which is exciting. How could it not be? Um, and yeah, what these guys fight for is interesting too. Like some of them fight for glory, some fight for their family, some fight for only money. It's like there's a number of reasons that they might be engaged in the sport, and it's just like music or just like life. Like some of us make music for money, some people do it for fame, some do it as a journal. You know, it's just interesting to me.
I'm wondering too, like from with that being said, like uh, a thought I just had was like when kind of like in the zone of fighting, or whether it's in the zone of music, like you're right, there is kind of like a purpose that each individual person has, and I think when all those things align, like I guess music is kind of more like a team sport than it is like a UFC bout, but like when all things align, it does feel like a sense of camaraderie that I don't think you know I don't know. It's an interesting kind of world to be in, music, because there's also this quote that I heard on Twitter. It was super interesting. It was like whenever business or money is involved in the studio, God leaves the room. I
Yeah,
butchered that whole quote, but that was something that I find to be pretty like true,
Yeah,
for
like
the
your
most part.
intention should never, like in the inception of creating, your intention should never be money. I mean, if
Yeah.
that's your intention, just stop. Just go find something else to do. Go play
I
around on the stock market or something.
Yeah, go play with crypto.
Yeah.
Uh, but the thing that I did notice that like a lot of actually more so R&B artists, they really are genuinely trying to make music for women,
Yeah.
and they're like that's like one of their like focus intentions, whether it's like making it for women to like or to get women, but um I think that's like that's a pretty powerful like inspiration to have and like juice to have. um I do think like the money aspect, like I fig in my opinion, like Tory Lanez would be kind of one of the artists who I love, but like I feel like there's artists that you can kind of like feel the money is the motive for. I would put him in that bucket,
And he
personally.
releases so much music. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I probably agree with you. I couldn't see how it wouldn't be somewhat motivated by money. It's just like you can't possibly be challenging yourself and still releasing that much music. Like a mixtape a week or something. You can't possibly be digging as deep as you can. But he's uber talented. Like
Hell
his
yeah.
his vocals are crazy. They snap. The way he manipulates the auto tune is really cool. Um, he's a hell of a writer. Like one of the first songs that I have on my computer of me was to a Tory Lanez beat from like 2010. And I went back and I listened to my version. I listened to Tory Lanez version. I was like, yeah, Tory Lanez is way better than I was at that time. And we're similar age. So, he is a monster, whether or not he's money motivated or not. He's a killer.
Totally. I definitely I artistically think that he's like I respect him artistically for
Dude, to
sure.
be able to crank out the amount of music that he cranks out alone is impressive.
Mm.
Just that alone, take away what it sounds like. You know,
Mhm. Mhm. That's
but
that's the thing. I feel like that the kind of there's similarities there in like in the Drake and the Tory Lanez like output and like music DNA. That's similar in my
right,
opinion.
like one thing is like their fans know that they can go, especially Tory Lanez. Like his fans know they can go to his Instagram once a week and expect a new piece of content, if not a full body of work. You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so it's the consistency in it. Yeah, like you'll go get a good steak dinner every once in a while from like one of these nice restaurants, but like a McDonald's is serving hamburgers all the time, every day. It's the same burger. It tastes the same. It's consistent. You know it's there. You know it's there at 3 in the morning. You know it's there at 7 in the morning. Like, it can be counted on. And I think like there's something to say about consistency and artistry where your fans know they can count on you, and that alone I think can develop a massive following, because people just want to be able to count on what they're watching. Like you're not going to get invested in a TV show if there's only one season of it and it's probably canceled at season two.
Mm.
You're
Mhm.
not going to get as invested, whereas or you don't know when season two is coming, right? Like Avatar 2 is it's taken 15 years to make that movie. If we had known that, we may not have been as invested in Avatar 1, right? You'd be like, okay, well.
Avatar 1. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a goofy example, but it's just,
I love it.
I think the fans they appreciate consistency, which is something I personally have struggled with, is being consistent and delivering music.
Yeah, where's your head at when it comes to output? Cuz you
Oh,
you
man.
you haven't like I feel like
I
again
have
kind
the
of back.
worst output of like
Well, well,
anybody.
and there's nothing wrong with it. I think kind of back to like the younger versions of ourselves where it's like kind of fearlessness and just like kind of
Right.
not kind of giving a fuck like when or where we release something. versus now it's like it's intentional. There's a lot more intention behind how we want to move, but it can be paralyzing to a certain extent too.
Yeah, somebody said, like, I was watching a podcast, I don't forget who said, but they were like, their uncle had been in prison their whole life, and he came home from prison and saw how his nephew was like in his marital relationship. They were having troubles, and the uncle said, "You guys are creating these prisons for yourself. Like I was in a real prison where I can't leave. I can't leave the room. I can't do anything. All of these prisons, all of your problems are self-imposed prisons. Like you've built these cages around these things. So like one of my problems was fear. It was pressure, and it was fear of making something to the level of what would be expected of somebody that was working with Dr. Dre or Kendrick Lamar, all these people. A lot of it was pressure of that and fear of not meeting those expectations that I put on myself. It was self-imposed. Nobody expects anything of me or doesn't expect anything of me. Um, I put these expectations on myself, and it hindered me from releasing my music a lot of times. You know, and another point about not releasing music is like I think if you did do it for money or if it was fame motivated or something like that, you would release it every time. But I think when it's a personal challenge for you to get better, and it's just a almost like a journal, or it's your place to go and vent. I don't think there's as much emphasis on releasing it to the world. And so like I found myself in that space for a long time where I was just making things. I would be proud of it. I would show my immediate circle and my friends. They would be proud of it. They would think it's cool. And then I move on to the next thing. And that thing
Mm.
would get buried in the hard drive forever. And you and I have dozens of songs like that that are really good, really quality. We've played them for people, they enjoy them. And just I let my own hangups keep me from releasing it. So that's a piece of advice for anybody out there is like, this is coming from I was the most brazen, confident, could, would I'd make a song and release it 9 minutes later to being caught up and hung up on even being able to release one song that I know people enjoy because I've field tested it. I know people enjoy it. I still can't put it out because of my personal reservations. Um,
For you, is it like what does that stem from? Like for me, it happened like I really started overthinking releasing music in 2015, like a little bit before we connected, and like I stopped. I just I don't know what it was. I couldn't even tell you what exactly happened, but something was just like it just thought so critically about it. Wasn't it, I've never been a perfectionist. I will never claim to be a perfectionist. But there's just something that just really like halted within me that like um I think a part of it was like I was DJing a lot and I was making a lot of music at the time that was like meant for shows, and I wasn't really aligned with the music I was making, and like
yeah.
I kind of felt a little shitty about it. And like I like you was listening to like a lot of stuff outside the genre that I made stuff with. But I'm curious for you, like was it the pressure of the Dre situation? Was it kind of like were you waiting on like something to be a certain quality or had a certain vision in mind? Like where does that come from for you?
Well, yeah, all of those things. Like I wanted it to meet a certain threshold that I had set for myself. Like I think a lot of it is expectation, bro. It is your expectation of yourself. You got to let that go. Cuz like you you're going to want more of yourself than anyone else is going to want from you, you know? And if you keep chasing that carrot on the end of that stick, like you're just never going to catch it. Even when you hit the level that was the previous best, then there'll be a new best. And you'll just never ever catch up to it. So a lot of it is about just biting the bullet, being satisfied with where you're at. I saw a Rick Rubin quote that was like, the work is never finished. when you put it out, it's just an indication of where you were at that moment. You
Mm.
know, like you
Mm-hmm.
could work on it forever and keep perfecting it, and it will get better and better and better. But at some point, you just have to let it go to the world, and let them decide what it is, or how
Yeah,
much they care about it.
there was a kind of after kind of after the stint where I wasn't releasing it. What I was craving was like the thing I was reserving. So like there is something about kind of letting something go, letting that piece of art go into the world and people responding to it that kind of that did a little feeding to the soul, like
Yeah,
and not I would say partly in an egotistical way, but also more so in like a finally like you can run free little piece of art
right.
that I've spent time with, and there's something like uh really like powerful about it, and something that like kind of unblocked that hesitation,
Mm.
and I think around 3-4 years ago there's a lot of things like rolling out. There's a lot more emphasis in like singles and a lot of like kind of more like really hyping a project up, and it still
Yeah,
happens of course, but I think the industry kind of also kind of guides you into what how you should be doing something, air quotes,
yeah.
and
I think that audience feedback is huge, right? Like that's like um, when I got when I quit releasing music and quit having audience feedback, it became more of a challenge to like get up every day and do it, because
mhm.
you feel like when you have that audience feedback, you feel like um, there's almost accountability, right? There's almost like they expect something of you, and you're motivated to deliver that thing because of their expectation. That's almost what gets you up. Is like I know there's at least someone out there that is interested in this, and I'm gonna try my best for them. Because a lot of times you can't do it for you, because you have reservations about yourself. You don't deserve this or that. You're not good enough for this or that. You have reservations. So a lot of times the fans or like supporters allow you to remove yourself from those personal reservations and just like give it to them for them. This is for y'all. And like I'm working on this really long, expansive project that's gonna, detail like a lot of what's gone on in these years, that I wasn't releasing music or sharing with people. And like something I noticed is just like the audience feedback in the beginning and how much that was propelling, like, and then when I separated myself from releasing music, yeah, how much more of a challenge it became to get up every day and do it for myself rather than do it for others.
Mm,
So like,
mhm,
yeah, I think
mhm.
that's an element for sure. There's an element.
It kind of takes it takes a lot more effort to get back into it for sure, like
Yeah,
to find that kind of cadence, because I was like you, not probably not 9 minutes later releasing a record, but I was just uploading shit when I felt like it, and
yeah,
I didn't I didn't really care what happened beyond that, and a lot of the times like kind of that letting go and that type of fearlessness rewarded me in ways that I didn't expect, and I think that's the beautiful part about kind of just having faith in yourself, and um in that term, letting go of a piece of whatever that moment was, because I think there's it's easy to kind of like compare like how someone may react to some other person's art, but you never kind of know unless you kind of give it away, you
right.
know? And
Mm-hmm.
so and that's like a really powerful thing. Like I think it all comes back, like I would say a lot of people that I know personally, hearing origin stories of where they come from, that validation aspect of it for an artist, as superficial as that sounds, I think it's very important. Like if you didn't have people around you saying like, yeah, that's tight, like that's really good,
Yeah.
or like having that around early on, you probably wouldn't and be the same person you are now.
Yeah.
And I would say the same for me. If I didn't have the group of friends that I had, um, validating my vulnerability, then I probably would have gave up a long time ago. Um, would you say like of all the people you kind of came up with that you've kind of stuck with the 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 passion, for a majority of the folks that you kind of like truly came up with, like from the hometown and everything?
Like, have I kept my passion for them, or just have we
Or
all kept the passion for
for the music?
music?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I speaking for myself, I have, and definitely those guys bolstered like the early days for me, bolstered my confidence in the early days, like you said. Like Thomas was huge for that, Sherb was huge for that. Just like people getting in your corner and believing in you, you know, and so on those days where you don't really believe in yourself, like there's a pick me up there, you know, and and those kind of friends are a blessing, you know, and I wouldn't have gotten to where I am without any single one of them, you know. Um, but yeah, I mean, we've all more or less kept our passion going. Like all the buddies I started with are still pursuing their creative endeavors, like whether it be videography or photography or art and animation. Or unfortunately, you know, we lost Sherb. Sherb passed away the 16th of March last year, and if he didn't, he would still be fully involved in what he's doing. He was an incredible engineer, like far beyond his years. Um, but yeah,
Looked like he
we
was
all kept
40.
with it. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, well, and he mixed like he's 42, so good for him. So
Ah, what a guy.
yeah,
Um,
no,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting. Like it, it's I'm curious like how many people in the this type of field, whatever it is, actually, like whether it doesn't even really matter, but like how many people you kind of start out with, and like the percentage of people that kind of fall by the wayside when it comes to the
right,
art, and pursue something else, which there is absolutely nothing wrong. Probably making a lot more money than us, to
right.
be honest. But
Well, a lot of times it's like life, right? Like life forces people in a direction, you know,
mhm.
like whether it be job or financial or kids, marital, like things are going to force you in a direction. Um, and it's up to you at the end of the day. It's up to you if you want to let that thing go or if you want to continue to feed it. Um, and yeah, a lot of people, unfortunately, like I think life gets in the way and then they kind of succumb to the idea that that is their life rather than they can create the life that they want. Um, and that happens with all of us. It's just the realities of life, dude. It's just the realities of having to pay bills. Like, uh, you don't, life isn't free. You know, we don't live for free. We have to pay to eat, to park, to like anything, entertainment. So that's the worst part is that music is so difficult to create like a steady living out of and like build a foundation for like a family or anything like that. It's sketchy and it's scary, especially once you have a family. Yeah, it's like you can't take those same risks and those same chances. So um, yeah, man, I don't know. Blessed is the only thing I can say. Like, is that life didn't has yet to take me in a different direction. I'm able to pour into it. So
Mhm. Yeah.
just a blessing.
Yeah, it's a privilege too, man, really, to be able to have the time to do that.
Right.
Like and yeah.
You
I
wonder how many like phenomenal like Picassos there there may have been had they not like had to get a job at Kinko's. You know, like
Sure, sure.
you wonder that sometimes. Um,
Picasso with the printer.
yeah, because I'm big on there's some natural talent that goes into this, but almost like that's the least important piece of the recipe. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
like doing it time and time again, day after day after day after day, is what
Mm-hmm.
really makes you better.
Mm-hmm.
So those people that are their time is being, they're being pulled apart in different directions. It's hard for them to get really, really great at the thing. Just it's simply a time factor. It's not a talent thing. It's not like a. It's simply the time you're able to put into it. You know.
Yeah, totally, totally. There's a where are you at? Sorry to like 180 this thing, but like um government oversight too. Like it's not only are we in like a in an age where it costs a shitload of money and tax to live.
Hmm.
I feel like now it being what February like 4th, or sorry, March 4th. Like there's just a lot of other shit going on. Like I do feel like from like a from the standpoint of being an artist now, it's a lot easier to make money in different ways.
Yeah.
Whether like whatever revenue streams, but then there's also this like feeling of like constriction from the government end. So uh like by that of like Canada freezing bank accounts, and
Right.
there's wars happening, and Afghanistan happened. Like we're also in like a very kind of pivotal time when it comes to like world, you know
Events. Yeah.
yeah, world events. But I'm also like wondering, if we're also just getting to the age to where, or to a time where we're just more we can see these things a lot more clear through phones and the internet.
Right.
It's probably always been this crazy. I mean, it always has, but like it just seems like a really kind of pivotal time for some reason. I feel like people in the 60s probably said the same exact shit, but I don't know. I don't know. There's a
I
lot
don't
of
know,
like,
man. It's
yeah.
amped up. To me, I think it's amped up to a new level because of social media and because of like the way how freely we can communicate and get how quickly we can get a message across. Like it is amped up. The fear, like all of that is amped up. All I can say is stay the course, man. I don't know what's real, what's not real. I don't know who to believe, who not to believe, but I do know that I can open up Pro Tools and work on my shit, and that's it. Just stay the course. Like I think a lot of it is fear mongering, man. I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. I just think that fear sells, and the news is there to make money, and they're willing to have us running around afraid in order to make money. And simple as that, dude. It's just like stay the course, man. Stay the course. Like keep your priorities in line. Keep your family taken care of, and just stay the course. Um,
Yeah.
it's
I
distractions. It's
mhm.
distractions, man. Like I
That's
don't
what it
know.
feels like. It almost like there's a moment kind of recently where I was like, damn, there's like so much happening in the world,
It's
and
negative too. It's all negative, yeah. Like
yeah,
when do they ever come out? When's the last time anybody ever came out and was like, "Oh, this good thing happened"? You just never hear about it. So for me, it's just I don't tune into it at all. I don't. I mean, God bless anybody that's going through anything that they don't want to be going through. I just it doesn't help me to tune into it, or to be invested in it like that.
mm,
Um,
yeah, yeah. It's tough too. Like there's like you say, I feel the same way. It's like we're definitely like in a fog of war, and the war is like kind of ever evolving. It's like going from a pandemic to an actual literal war.
right.
uh, I mean, precursor to the pandemic, it was like war with the police and brutality to this and then to that. So it's
Something
like,
is up. I mean, I don't know
yeah,
what it is, but it's like something's up. I feel like they're trying to weaken us. I don't know who they is. I'm not, again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not talking about shadow people. I'm just like we keep getting hit left and right, right? It's like left hook, right hook, left hook, right hook, left hook, right hook. It's
it
like
feels like a rollout. It feels like a
right. It feels
rollout.
like a rollout, dude. A rollout for what?
Right, right.
Um,
Where's the album? Where's the dark,
right.
hellish album? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And you know what's funny is like pandemic, go in your house, and then Zuckerberg's like, oh, what do you know? The metaverse, right? It's like, hey, everybody go in your house, and then here's this machine to keep you in the house forever. And so that's the only thing I see that's like a pattern that makes sense is like for whatever reason, it seems like we're being pushed more towards isolation and only being social via the internet, right? Like not
Sure.
having any actual physical interactions, which is
Yeah.
strange, you know.
There's
And
something.
I can see it
Yeah.
happening too. Like no reason why the metaverse shouldn't work. And I don't like calling it the metaverse because that's Zuckerberg branded his company as Meta and then started calling it the metaverse. It's like no, it's virtual reality. That's what it is.
3D 2.0.
Yeah, it's like your company is not this. You know, it's just
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
aspect of it.
Right.
Um, but who knows, dude? Who knows? Like, at least, um, at least, man, we can communicate with each other still via
Right.
FaceTime and things like this. You know, it's just a crazy time. It really is.
Yeah. I think it would be a funny scare. It's like I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Like I don't believe in like the Gorgo Schleptons from Galaxy S. I'm definitely not a conspiracy theorist. You keep naming all this shit that's like super deep conspiracy.
No, it's not though. It's like I don't believe like there's no COVID or anything like that. I just think that we're being meant to or we're being made to fear it. I think we're
Yeah.
intentionally being made to fear it, and there's no good in fear. Fear doesn't do anything for you ever, ever. Like even if you're staring down a bear in the forest, the worst thing you could do is be afraid, like and tuck tail and run away. Best thing you could do is like poke your chest out and like yell at it. Fear doesn't get us anywhere ever, and all we're doing is living a perpetual state of fear. Um, so if there's anything to do, it's just like break free from that. You know?
Right. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I do notice too. It's like they make there's a very clear distinction on like what side you're on with every single. They make it like very
Right. Like
easy to pick a side with whatever
everything's
event.
being politicized.
Yeah.
Like I remember a little while back, like it's like when Trump was in office, it's like if you're Republican, you're a racist. If you even consider yourself conservative or Republican, you're racist automatically. Or that's how they people would perceive you. So like things are being heavily politicized. I mean, you can't. No subject goes unpoliticized, right? Which is it's a little bit scary because it's creating this massive division, this rift in the ground when there is no division. Like I remember when the race relations were happening, like, and cops got to stop shooting anybody. That's a fact. I mean, you're there to protect and serve. That's your main job is to protect us and serve us. When that was going on, though, like it felt like on the internet, right? It felt like civil war on the internet. It felt like white people and black people were like never gonna repair this thing. Is how bad it felt, right? And then when I would like walk into the convenience store, I'd be in there with like two Mexican dudes, like three black dudes, and me, and everybody's like giving each other head nods, like "What's up?" You know, dude might open the door for me. And so what I'm thinking is like in real life, these things aren't happening. Like when I go out in the real world, it feels like unity. It feels like everyone's together. Nobody's fighting in the streets. When you click one of those applications, you would think the world's on fire. So that's an interesting thing to think about too. Is like go
Hmm.
out in the real world. Tell me if you see racism or if you see trans hate and all this on your daily commute. Tell me if you see any of this. I'm not seeing it personally. Now, that's not to say it doesn't exist because I know it does. But I think our day to day interactions with each other are getting a lot more positive um, in real life. But on the internet, you would think it's the opposite.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. Like it's definitely like happening. It's just how it's shaped in this small world that we can turn on and like dial into and be kind of fully focus on is being painted in a way that's far more um yeah, politicized. I think the other scary thing, like I didn't like Trump, didn't hated all that stuff. The censorship thing when it did happen for him, I was actually really stoked at the time. I was like, fuck this. Like I would find myself going on his Twitter just to piss myself off
Yeah, like
about.
hate read it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And then kind of like a year later, um some time later, like I started to actually recently I was like, damn, they they shut down the president. Like
right,
if they're able to do that to someone of that size and influence, like
right.
there's absolutely a world in which this can be applied to anything that doesn't correspond with to the narrative of fear that
Right.
that feels like it's being driven into us.
Yeah, and like these different platforms, like that's where our lives are. Like Twitter, Instagram, that's where our lives are. Unfortunately, we put all our eggs in those baskets. So we give them the authority to do whatever they want with our lives because they're private companies. It's not Twitter's not government ran, or else they wouldn't have been able to kick anybody off of there. Um, it's a private company; they can do what they want, and we've put all our eggs in their basket. And so we gave them this power. Who knew that they were going to take advantage of it? Nobody would have known that. But um, yeah, it's a scary thing to think about for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not to say like, I think it's just a really, because I do think there's people with good intentions, and I do believe in like the good in people. I have to, or at least like I just be stuck inside my house all day,
Yeah,
like, but there is something to be said about just the overall age of the internet and like the not the age but the lifespan of it so far. Like it's really in its fetal stages
yeah,
still.
infancy. Like zoom out
Yeah,
100 years, what's the internet going to be?
yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
it's in its infancy for sure.
yeah. There's a lot of stuff that I think kind of like how America was founded. You file trial by fire, a file by trier. Uh, but uh, but it's like stuff that we're gonna have to figure out and like make it. Some shit's not gonna work, and some shit's gonna piss a lot of people off. Some things we're gonna look back at and be like, holy shit, that was stressful, or holy shit, that was a nightmare.
Yeah,
Um, so this is all like, and all of this kind of does correspond with music too, because like when the Beatles came out in kind of the psychedelic revolution, and there was anti-war stuff happening, there was, it was probably harder to censor things or people that were in disagreements with what
yeah.
the
The
country's
powers that
objective
be,
was.
right?
Yeah,
Like the Beatles would have been shut down immediately.
quick,
Or like
super quick.
Eminem would have been shut down immediately, or anybody who's like um, anti-establishment at all. Like who's uh, Rage Against the Machine. Like
Yeah,
anybody who is anti-establishment would have just been immediately silenced. And it's just a scary thing to think about. You know, I want to hear the voice of the person who disagrees with me. I want to hear it, you know, because it may give me perspective. I don't want to live in an echo chamber with where I cannot grow in that space. There's nowhere to go. I want to hear opposing opinions. I want to hear people who think I'm stupid. I want to see vile people on the internet so I know who to avoid. Like, I think let it be. Let it all be. Trust in me and my decision making as an adult to decide for myself what's right and wrong, what I want to hear, what I don't want to hear, who I want to engage with. I think leave that up to me. I can decide that. I think they're kind of treating us like children, you know, and that's unnecessary. It's like you know you know when somebody's a troll. You can see their little avatar. They've never had an actual profile picture. You know when it's a troll and they're just trying to stir shit up. You know if some guy says go grab an AK-47 and meet me at the park, not to do it. You know it's that's pretty clear. You know it's
Right. Yeah.
at some point accountability needs to go onto the individual rather than like, oh, let's protect everybody from everything.
Yeah.
You know, give individuals some benefit of the doubt, that they can make their own decisions, is what I would say.
Yeah. Like
Because
when I
yeah,
think,
there's a danger in censoring music and censoring art, good art, and things like
yeah,
this. Like
I mean, and even more importantly, censoring conversations, like or perspectives. Like I think
right,
that's kind of
like
what it.
open dialogue, which is
Yeah.
important. Like we all need that.
Yeah.
We need that. It obviously it takes like a huge person to have an open dialogue and admit you were wrong. I don't think you'll find many admitting they're wrong, but I think you'll find a lot of people sitting with that information and having a change internally. You know, it may affect them and a different perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
like I know a ton of times like I've especially when I was young, right? Like I would get in a fight with like my mom or something or my parents and I would think I was in the right, but something they said during the course of the argument or something, I would go reflect on and I would say, "Oh, okay. Yeah. That's where I
Mm-hmm.
was wrong. That's where I messed up."
Mm-hmm.
Um, without those other perspectives, you're not allowed that opportunity. You just think you're right all the time.
Yeah. And it's kind of like it's those things are like not allowed to be ever present, and then it's also one side of it is amplified, so it's a very like one directional uh type of conversation that kind of happens in the public, yeah, from that level. And I think it's like it's kind of a scary world to imagine, like, where you have a message or you have something that you believe in or want to say, and you're not allowed to do that. And I there's stuff where it's like dangerous, like legitimately dangerous and legitimately like morally wrong, but I think there are people should have the right to kind of say what they think and what they believe in, like a um you know civil way,
Yeah.
like um
We should invite it. We should invite that kind of discourse. Like that's the only way to make progress, you know? And yeah, it's like participation trophy. You know, it's like, well, if we give everybody a trophy, how do the shitty kids know they're not very good at the sport? You know, maybe they need to pivot and go into something else. Or maybe the really good kids think they're just average, so they kind of lose interest in it. I think something that propelled me early in baseball was like knowing that I was among the better ones amongst my peers. So I was like, let me see how good I really am. Let me see how far I can really take it. If you just think you're on the same playing field as everyone else, I mean, where's your motivation? Um,
mm,
you know, people are reward incentivized. Like we like to be rewarded. Humans like to be rewarded for their hard work or for their compassion or whatever it might be. Um,
yeah, we're good little monkeys.
yeah, exactly. And we like to be patted on the head sometimes.
Yeah, right.
And I think like, you know, but don't pat me on the head if I'm doing a bad job.
Mm.
I don't need the pat. I would rather know the truth, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think yeah, the bottom line, we want to get to the truth, right? We want to know what's real, and you can only have that with both all perspectives present,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Right. Right. Yeah. Damn. Shit's crazy.
It is a
Uh.
wild time. It's the Wild West. It's a wild time, man, especially for people our age that have been through like economic collapse, 9/11, housing crisis, pandemic,
Whoo.
college tuition is crazy expensive.
Yep.
Um, this war that may be going on, like, yeah, it's been a tough time for like 30 somethings. You know, we've been off to a sketchy start here, a lot of turbulence.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, we're like the dawn of the computer and the internet, video games.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of got to witness. It's a good. I feel like it was a good. It's a good time to be alive.
Yeah, it's a great time.
We covered a lot in these amount
Yeah, I played
of years.
outside.
Yeah,
I
we played
played
outside.
outside.
Yeah. Yeah. But there is something like that I do envy with the younger ones though is like is they're going to be very hyper tapped in to
For
technology
sure.
in a way that I think they can really have fun, like a sandbox would be like for like engineering or for creating, innovating in this. Like I hope there's a spirit of like of building still, and not like being stuck in what you have, but like improving upon
Dude, it's
the
like Babe Ruth, like, used to smash home runs. Like, put him against any pitcher today, he's not gonna touch the ball
yeah.
ever. Not
Yeah.
gonna touch it, not one time.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's how we'll look compared to internet kids in 30,
Yeah.
40 years. I mean, they're just gonna be phenomenal. Dude, something that I think is gonna be massive is like when they take away when input, like Elon talks about this, like you only have so much dexterity in your fingers, right, to type out what you're thinking. It can only go so fast. So there's like a lag. And I think once they figure that out, however they do it technologically, like there'll be a way where you can think it and it's there on the screen,
Yeah.
right? So like the speed at which you could build something or create something will be like expedited crazy, and you'll be able to create like these massive environments or massive worlds or soundscapes or whatever instantaneously. Like,
Mm.
imagine if you could just think of the picture you want to draw and just like boom, it pops onto the paper rather than you having to erase this line and make sure it's at the right trajectory and blah blah blah.
Right.
Like, you could just imagine it and it's there.
Right.
I think that's the future of creating on the internet,
Damn.
especially in VR, especially in the metaverse. Because like you could be like, I imagine a box, and the box will just appear, and then you're like, okay, I imagine a roof on the box, and then you have a house, and it's like, okay, now magnify that times 10, make it 10 times bigger, and it'll immediately boom, 10 times bigger. Okay, now
Yeah.
put bricks on the outside of it, boom.
That scares me a little bit. It's like it almost. I mean, I think it could be. I think it would be super interesting. It's hard to even fathom like what what the endlessness could be with that. Like I'd imagine kind of like because I don't know how your brain works, and we all are wired differently too. So like I can imagine some people plugging into something like that, and that they put it in or they put it on or what. I mean, they turn it on or they whatever, and instantaneously like there's this. You know how like you there's like a feedback loop if you have like a mic and like you have something else that's on, and it's like this repetitive like thing. I I I wouldn't I wouldn't be surprised if some people just died instantaneously because they just like
It's
they
too
like see
much.
their yeah they see
Dude,
their future or some shit.
oh, you've put on like VR headsets, right?
Yeah. Oh
Like
yeah.
when you first put it on, and then like I don't know which one you tried, but the one I tried, it
I got
inserts
the
you,
the Oculus.
right. It inserts you into this like giant white room with like a grid on the ground,
Uh huh.
and it's infinite in every direction. And
Uh huh.
that was the scariest thing when I first put it on, or the coolest thing, is I was like, oh my God, this is huge. Like the amount of space is just insane. You know, like it's like being in the middle of the ocean and look in every direction. There's water.
Yeah,
Um,
because we're also like limited with our senses too. Like our eyes, you
can
know,
only see so far, and
yeah,
right,
like and only like a certain spectrum. So like there's a whole I think there's a whole world, you know, like that scientific fact. I don't even know if this is accurate, but we only use like a small percentage of the brain, like
yeah,
something like I don't know, what is it, like 30% or something like that. I don't know. I just butchered that, but it's like if our brain is capable of like doing this amount with that amount of brain power CPU, then shit, I feel like we're all superheroes.
right.
You know, like we have that level of like understanding and like uh power with us, you know?
Right.
And who knows like what your abilities will be versus like, you know, Thomas or Linda
Oh, when
or
it's
Carrie.
infinite, yeah, when it's
Yeah.
infinite, and you're not like bolstered, or you're not like tied down by like an instrument, or you're not tied down by like some people. Just, I mean, I have small hands, so like my buddy Briss is like this phenomenal piano player. He has huge hands. There's sometimes there's just literal physical things that make somebody better than the next person.
Mm.
But if you're all operating inside of virtual reality, it evens the playing field a little more.
Mhm.
Like for instance, like I could never be a basketball player. I just couldn't do it. I'm just not built like that. But I probably could in VR if I want to create my avatar at 6'9" and I can use my hand-eye coordination. Like I could probably be in the digital NBA, right?
Yeah.
So like
VRBA.
it's
Yeah.
gonna open so much for so many people that maybe before they just couldn't accomplish it for whatever reason.
Right. Right.
Dude,
Yeah.
I have to pause one more time because I gotta piss so bad.
My boy my boy's got a bladder the size of a dang Capri Sun.
Those, I mean, one Red Bull fucking equals 19 urinations for me.
Oh shoot, man. Uh gosh dang. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff to think about, to chew on right there. Um yeah. But how you feeling, bro?
Feel good. I feel
Yeah.
generally great. How do you feel?
I feel good, man. I feel good. I think yeah, the world's got me down a little bit. It like I'm unlike you where like I consume the stuff around me. Like I'm just genuinely curious and like I think I think I can see why a lot of people can kind of like go in the direction of just utter skepticism in everything because it's very clear that like we don't have to live this way, you know? Like it, we don't have to, but there's a reason why it perpetuates into something like this, into how it is now. And like so sometimes it gets heavy and then I think about, you know, like the future for my daughter and what type of world this is and what type of man I want to become and how I want to provide for my family, but you know, balance. There's like a big balancing
Well, I
act,
think
you
like
know.
in the future, we have no idea of knowing what kind of world your daughter's gonna live in. Like, um, just how like some of our grandparents were like before civil rights and things like that, like borderline racist, you know? Like a lot of our grandparents or great grandparents or and then you see that that's like almost completely died off like a couple generations later. I mean, there's pockets of it, but it's like, you know, who knows what that thing is going to be for them, you know, like for us it may be like something to do with gender, like gender rights. Like in 30 years, some people that are against whatever, against whatever's going on right now will be looked at as like old fashioned, right? They'll be like, "Oh, my grandpa's an idiot. He thinks men are men and women are women."
Mm,
Like
mm.
who knows what the train of thought will be at that time.
It almost seems like there's just like a pattern of like this versus that in every single culture, every
Dude,
single society.
yeah.
Is so odd, like how we can't get past that. And I know like you know, world peace is like a something that's hard to imagine, but it don't. I almost feel like we, even if we had the capacity to do that, we wouldn't even know what to do with it if it was like if it slapped us in the face, you know?
I don't think there's world peace because there's never internal peace. I mean, like how long can you have personal peace for? Like a day, a minute, a nap? Like like and so if we're just a piece of this mother earth, then like it would make sense that the earth is never will never truly be at peace either. I think
Yeah.
maybe the like fight, gives it some life, right? Like it
Mm.
gives it something. Like volcanoes have to erupt and they're like devastating. They'll melt anything in its path. It's like an almost an evil force, but they're like necessary to the planet, So like yeah, maybe there's no such thing as world peace. Maybe we're just perpetually destined to fight. Like, you know?
Yeah. No, and that's true. The world is in like this perpetual state of chaos. I mean, we are kind of spinning at an incredible velocity uh throughout some cold dark black space, and but that's true though, man. It almost feels like we shouldn't be here almost. You know what I
Whoa,
mean?
dude.
You know what I mean? Like,
Whoa.
yeah, I know. It's just roll with me for a second though. Like we're way too aware of how of of ourselves to the point to where like you look at a dog is like half domestic for the most part. I mean, at least domestic dogs are domestic, but like they still have a sense of animal in them, and I still think we do too, but just it's a lot smaller of a percentage. But we still have that, like we all bear a chaotic nature within each of us that I think is just in our DNA. But
Well,
yeah,
like all animals live in harmony with the world. Like if you
with the
notice them,
chaos,
yeah, they
yeah,
live in harmony with it. Like
yeah,
the animals work with each other, they feed off of each other, they're necessary for each other, and we're kind of like separated from that, or at least like our path has taken us separate from them. Where as once we may have been together and in unity with like the earth and all the creatures on it, but at some point we diverged, man, and we're like almost like a sickness to the earth, or like the thing that's destroying it. Whereas everything else is living in harmony with the planet, all the other creatures. So yeah, I see what you're saying. There's definitely a case for like us being seeded on this planet, because we're so much different than
not a conspiracy theorist, but lizard people. I mean, not a conspiracy theorist, but
oh, we're so much different than anything else, and like we share all this with monkeys, and monkeys live in harmony with the world, with the earth, but we don't. It's almost like yeah, there's something tricky going on.
yeah, I wouldn't say live in harmony with it because they definitely like they brutalize each other hardcore. Like I just saw a crazy video with
But
some
they don't
chimps.
hurt the planet. they don't hurt the planet. Like all of that eating each other and predatory and prey, like that still moves like it's mutualism, you know, with the planet. It helps, it all helps. Um we seem to be the only thing that's like destructive, truly destructive. Like
What a good note to end on.
it's perfect.
Man,
Perfect.
God bless you, brother.
God bless you, man. So good to talk to you.